Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. Last season, I started what I hoped would be a continuing conversation on collecting, only I wasn't sure how it would continue. Then, a listener offered to be a guest and they suggested this movie, and I knew Shawn Robare would have some valuable insight, so I asked him right away to join. And then the guest, whose idea it was, and I won't name them, as I didn't ask before, but I'm having them on in the future, so maybe we'll talk about it then, they couldn't do it. So I wondered, what is this episode? I have a great guest, but why am I talking about a cartoon movie I saw in elementary school but haven't revisited? I could have Shawn on for a number of movies. In fact, check out our Frankenstein and Me episode. But then, my friend JL mentioned collecting Cobra Commander figures. And so I asked him at the last minute, would you join? He said yes, and suddenly I knew what this episode was. This is a continuation on collecting. Then I heard about Wordburglar from a friend's podcast, and when I looked, he had recorded material on G.I. Joe. So I reached out and got the okay to feature it. And something that really makes this episode even more special is that my two guests have been internet friends for like 8 years, but this is the first time they've spoken to each other. Bonded by collecting, brought together by a movie that once I press play, well, we'll get into that. Because the film is G.I. Joe the movie, my guests are friends and collectors, and this is VH Us.
Innocence can be hell. Innocence can be hell. Can be hell. Innocence can be hell. Innocence can be hell.
Greetings and salutations, this is VHS, and I'm your host, Dirk Marshall. Last season, we had our first conversation revolving around collecting, and in that episode, I spoke with Vinny about collecting physical media. In this episode, I'm joined by not one but two collectors, and we'll discuss what they collect, and then we'll talk a bit about a movie that exists pretty much solely to inspire collecting. My first guest has been on the podcast, as well as being responsible for producing many of our classic episodes. It's J.L. Watkins. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
My second guest is also returning, but you may know him as co-host of the Cult Film Club podcast. It's Shawn Robare.
Hey guys, very happy to be here.
Now, we all have things that we collect. JL, you travel a lot. Are there things that you look for on your travels, parts of your core collections?
Yeah, you know what's funny is I have things that I look for, like I'm really into Twin Peaks, and so I'll always find interesting like versions of Laura Palmer's diary in different countries,
Right.
or always films and things. You know, I think for each of you, I bought something in another
Yes.
country before. Like, oh, I'm always looking for Monster Squad stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, for your Lost Boys Lounge, I've gotten you Lost Boys. and several
Yes. Yes,
others.
it looks great.
But it's funny, I have little things that I look for, comic books and things, but I've also just other people's collections or what I think their collections are, I just bring with me. So I'll be looking through like certain comic books, and in my mind, this guy John Randall that collects Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's one issue that I know it's like a holy grail for him. So I'm always like, oh, let me just look for John real quick.
Oh, that's so rad.
And so it's sort of like I have that collector spirit in me, and I also love it when other people have it.
What do you think is the thing you've collected the longest? Because I know you have a lot of David Lynch Twin Peaks things.
No, you know what's wild is, you know, well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of 80s nostalgia going on in
Right.
this, but, you know, G.I. Joe, I still have all my original action figures from, 40 years ago.
Wow.
When I was a kid. Actually, I have 1982, my Flynn Tron figure, still in pretty awesome condition, just sitting willy-nilly inside a pencil thing here, whatever. Just, there's things that stay with me
Mm-hmm.
that I haven't parted with. And then, you know, as I get older, I've started whittling down like collections and things that, you know, keep things close, and then, you know, stop collecting every weird thing, I guess.
Yeah. Shawn, what about you? core collecting things versus is there a wide net of things that you collect, or is it strictly Monster Squad?
It's definitely a wide net. Monster Squad is probably my most focused collection,
Mhm.
and that's honestly something that's been like in the last 10, 12 years or something like that. Before that, and still these days, it's like 80s stuff. So we're talking about action figures, and I get sucked into like I was kind of the same way as Jail, where I kind of like pared down and got very focused in terms of like stuff that I wanted to have out, and I didn't want to keep. I would find that like stuff would just keep like piling into boxes, and then boxes would fill closets, and then it was just
Mhm.
like, am I a hoarder? I don't know. It's stuff that I could sell, so maybe it's the best kind of hoarder. I don't know. What I'll end up doing is like we bought two nice IKEA cases, and so I limited myself to what I can fit in those cases, basically. So like all the stuff that I grew up with, I like having some kind of a representation of that around me because it just brings me joy and
Mhm.
it makes me happy. So like for the topic we're going to cover tonight, like I have a lot of vintage GI Joe stuff, but I've also been picking up like here and there I'll be picking up like figures that kind of represent some of the figures that I loved growing up. So I'll have like nice the new versions or whatever. Lately I've been buying a lot of Transformers junk,
Like old or new?
mostly new.
Okay.
The stuff that the Hasbro's been putting out recently has been like really cool in terms of bridging the gap between the old toys and the cartoon. So it's like you kind of get the best of both worlds. Whereas before it was like, the toy looked nothing like the cartoon. So it's kind of cool to have something on the shelf that kind of represents both. But there's always like 80s stuff. It's hard for me like when I'm out and about and I see like an old Panini sticker book or VHS tapes or something like that. It's like I found a sealed copy of Meatballs 2 the other day and it's like how can I not buy this? How can I not rescue this from sitting in this dingy
Yeah.
thrift store? I try to pare it down. So when I'm seeking stuff, when I'm actually like looking specifically for stuff, it's usually Monster Squad stuff.
Yeah, I don't really collect a lot, I say, and then I have a lot of something, so I think I've been in like I just haven't been aware of my own habits over the years because I think anyone that's like I find a band I like, I have to have every remix of every EP, I have to have every compilation appearance, I have to, it's like that's collecting, but I just didn't give it a name. And then
Mm.
now in the movies and whatnot, it's like the covers that meant the most to me in my dad's video store. I have to have those regardless of if the movie's good or not. It's like that image left an imprint on me and it feels good to be able to look at it.
Yeah. Do you find yourself like having to like replace a piece of physical media if like it didn't have like the original cover, but then now there's an edition that comes out that has it?
I've done that a couple times because the new art I didn't like. Like they made
Hmm.
it look too cool. That's a big popular thing to do right now is do these crazy awesome covers and then you watch the movie and you're like, this is not that. And in not like a Death Stalker way where the cover art is awesome, but like in a way that it's just like it doesn't fit. But yeah, I've definitely replaced some things that way and or just bought older versions because the new one was like no. The film that brings us together for this episode, though, is G.I. Joe, the movie from 1987. We're all roughly the same age. What's everyone's history with G.I. Joe? Straight into it right off the bat, or?
Yeah, it was like, was it 1982, 1983 when the toys hit?
Yeah, I think so.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. I was a kid who was like, I was super into Star Wars and stuff. So as soon as I found action figures that had more than the 5 points of articulation, like I could bend the arms and
Yeah.
swivel things, I was like, holy crap. And that's literally where my focus went for years was like G.I. Joe. That was the big thing.
Yeah, JL?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, GI Joe is my cartoon. I was obsessed with it and bought all the toys. I ended up being more Cobra than GI Joe.
Yeah, nice.
Not that I'm like a person that's like I'm into evil characters. I just liked it so much better. I don't
Yeah.
know, and
Their design.
Yeah.
and to this day, Cobra Commander, Destro, and the Baroness, and then sometimes Major Blood. I buy all of their toys still to this day. So I must have like 60 different. This is weird because I don't like sit around and think about GI Joe at all.
I've never
Like,
seen
oh, there's
anything at your
but then there's
house.
like, yeah, no, but when they're like, oh, there's a new Cobra Commander figure, I'm like, oh, I'll just add it. But I have so many now, and like it's ridiculous. And so they've been Super Seven and Hasbro. They've just been putting out so much, and so at least
Mhm.
once a year, I'm like, let me get the 4 different Cobra Commanders and whatever. These like new, these ones are so fantastic, and they kind of
Oh,
call
wow.
back to the
Yeah.
cartoon.
Yeah.
I think you guys will understand, but I have one to take out of the box, one
Yes.
box, and one just in case.
Yes.
So my closet has like my kids someday are going to discover like what are all these unopened figures and like, so I actually I haven't opened this yet. I'm like dying to, and I have like, I have like the three different Destros and the three different Baroness. And
Yeah. My wife loves Twin Peaks as well. You have a shared love with Twin Peaks, and anytime you find something that's like super super cool, I'll tell her like, "Hey, JL picked up 3 of something," and she knows when I say he got 3 of something that one of them's for her. So it's like because I know you open one and you put one in storage. But yeah, that's same thing. GI Joe was I was all GI Joe. I wasn't so much a Star Wars kid. My brother was, but GI Joe was like it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. They had so many cool little things in their little packages. Like they had a gun and a backpack or whatever, and a walkie-talkie or like all of these. And then the back card of the figure had stories and facts about the things, and they were like $2. Like it was, if
Yep.
we went to Bimart, they had them. If we went to a toy store, they had them. Like you'd find them all over the place. What do you got there, Sean?
This is my Dialton. Dialton's like my go-to GI Joe guy.
Oh, good. We're gonna talk about
But
him
it's the
later.
backpack. It's
Yep.
the he's got the cool little like mic that comes down and everything.
Yes.
I would like fetishize over like specific aspects of the Joes. Like JL, I was more into the Cobra, especially with the design aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
But like any character that had the beret, I had to have.
Yeah.
So Flint and Falcon and Dialtone and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it's all the little pieces and the backpacks and the accessories and oh my god, it was so great.
my mother, I don't know how she figured this out, but it happened with Kenner with Star Wars, and then Hasbro did it too. People complained that like my son or my kid lost the weapon. So if you like sent a check or like $2 or whatever in the mail, they would send you back like a box filled with all the weapons. Like
What?
they just like dig them out and shove
Mhm.
them in a box. And so I remember my mom's like, here, and threw it at me one time, and it was just filled with every GI Joe weapon because to them it's just pieces of plastic. And so all my dudes were outfitted for life.
Oh,
And she did it once with Star Wars, and it was like around Empire Strikes Back. So it was in the box was tons of those little respirators that they wore like when they were inside the space worm. And it's crazy. And so to this day, I just remember like the cheat code on getting because everyone lost all their guns all the time. And I
Yeah.
just never had
Sure.
that problem.
before we get into the movie, did you have specific setups or scenarios for your GI Joes? Because I had a playset. It was a McDonald's playset, and it was the perfect size to be robbed. So I constantly had this McDonald's playset getting robbed, and it had a place where you put the trays in the outside, and then a little slider that shot the tray through the kitchen. It was a cool little playset, but that was like my main thing. And then any big pieces of styrofoam that were packing material, that became like a snow scene that I put the GI Joes in, and like I had a whole situation. Did you guys have, or even areas in your home that was the play zone?
I for sure did. So my parents bought me the USS Flag, and I feel
Oh.
bad about it to this day because I hated it. I hated it then. I've never wanted it back since. I know it's like a Grail Joe item
Yeah.
for a lot of collectors,
Oh,
but it for years it's what kept us from having a dining room table. That was what was in our dining room space in the house, and my mom hated it. It was my dad's idea to buy it, but I would just pile all my GI Joes on top of it. So it's basically like just a place to store everything.
mm-hmm.
And I was one of those weird kids that like I played with my figures, but it was more about like I would set up the scene. I would like take everything off the flag and set things up all over that room, and then like as soon as I was done, put it all back on top. It was weird. I had a weird way of playing as a kid.
I always pretended, I think I was really obsessed with the Road Warrior too. So I would
Yeah.
lay out all the vehicles like as if it was a Road Warrior scene where they're just driving through the desert and they wouldn't move at all unless I moved their positions. And I would just have a person fall off and go, ah, and I would just slide them backwards like they were gone under tires.
That's awesome.
And Scarlet was always in my mind. I got her like as a kid confused with, the woman Archer from Road Warrior. They were like,
Mhm.
they both had like the similar hair and the thing or
Yep.
whatever. So I always like they were always the same character to me between the two of them. It was interesting. But one time, kind of when I got a little older, maybe sixth grade or something, I had somebody dumped out an old PC. And so when I took off the side and turned on side, it was a perfect Cobra base.
Oh.
It had all the electronics in it, and I could move stuff around, and they would like shoot out where the slots are in the back. And so I had that for a long time. No computer. It was just, it looked like a cool base.
Oh, that's great. It's so funny because I hadn't thought about so much of this, and this movie brought like all of it back, like aggressively from the get-go. So we should get into that. A brief history. In 1964, G.I. Joe was the world's first action figure. He had 21 moving parts. It was thought in the 60s boys wouldn't want to play with dolls, so Hasbro, they coined the phrase action figure. I don't know, but Hasbro supposedly did so. There was some pushback on kids playing war during the time of Vietnam, so that's when G.I. Joe veered from military into action fantasy, which, okay, seems like war to me with lasers. I don't know, but and the cartoon began in 1983. The synopsis for the film is the heroic G.I. Joe action force must oppose the ruthless Cobra organization that is secretly allied with a subterranean reptilian people who were once their founders. That's the synopsis. Seems pretty accurate. It's directed by Don Jurwich, who also did Spider-Man, the cartoon series, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, this, and the Yogi Bear movie. But as a producer, he worked on Super Friends, G.I. Joe, Robotrix, and Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines. Any favorites there? Bigfoot?
I don't even remember the Bigfoot cartoon. I had the toys off of that.
Yeah.
No, I love all the Sunbow stuff. I think Bigfoot's a Sunbow cartoon. I love that whole family of things, Transformers, Gem, Inhumanoids, and all that.
Yeah. A lot of these guys worked on the same things, too.
It's weird, too, because there's a lot of the attribution of who did what it's kind of like in the current day, like with sitcoms where you have like, a whole writer's room working on something, but like one person takes point, so they get credit for that script and they kind of like parcel it out for all the writers. It's definitely like that because I know that Flint Dille was one of the big writers at Sunbow, and he did a lot of the background work on G.I. Joe the movie, but doesn't get any credit for it whatsoever. So it's weird.
Yeah, he doesn't. There's 3 writers that are credited. The first of which is Ron Friedman, who wrote Transformers the movie, G.I. Joe the series, Wonder Woman cartoon, lots of TV from Get Smart all the way through to Jonathan Winter's show. And then Buzz Dixon, who's somehow not a G.I. Joe name. He did Ninja Turtles, Visionaries, Knights of the Magic Light. Do you remember that show?
Oh yeah. Visionaries was a big one for me. That's one of those like later Sunbow shows that is weirdly connected to G.I. Joe.
Yeah. I watched the first episode, and the first voice you hear is Cobra Commander's voice, which I was just like, oh, okay. He also did Conan the Adventurer cartoon and Wild West COW, Wild Boys of the Moo Mesa, which I think is cows. And then Roger Slifer, I think is how you say that, did Transformers the movie, Gem, Conan, RoboCop the cartoon, and Potato Head Kids, which was a 1986 cartoon about kids that were potatoes. Featured Scott Grimes, we all know from Critters, and it's Breckenmeyer's first credit. He played the role of Spud. So go ahead and check that out, everybody. It's animated in Japan by Toei Animation. A little bit of trivia. Cobra Law was meant to be replaced, but Hasbro liked the name so much that they just kept it in the script. So that wasn't canon, I guess. I don't know. But Cobra Law is pretty awesome. The film also opens with what was meant to be the ending of the film, which I think is interesting because this movie starts off so rad. And then I was talking to Jail about this yesterday. Both G.I. Joe and Transformers were being made at the same time. G.I. Joe got delayed, and so Transformers was released first, and people didn't like that Optimus Prime died, spoiler alert. So that's why Duke is put in a coma and then brought back out. If Joe had come out first, supposedly, we'd have a dead Duke. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Especially the way he dies on screen. Like when you see Transformers fighting it, it's like, well, they're robots.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just turn them back on.
Yeah, Dirk is pretty violent.
I remember when this came out, and my friend Aaron and I, we were like, we have to watch it because Duke dies. And then when he gets, like, struck, we were like, yeah, he's dead. This is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. And then I just completely forgot that he was in a coma until, like, 5 days ago. And then I was watching this, and I was like, what? He comes out of it, because I think Aaron and I just decided he died. So for a long time, he's been dead in our minds. Also in this episode, we'll feature a few topical musical interludes courtesy of the rapper Wordburglar. So let's press play on G.I. Joe, the movie.
Crashing through the sky comes a fearful cry. Cobra! 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 Armies of the night, evil taking flight.
It's a crazy glitter start as the most epic theme ever plays, composed by Ford Kinder and Spencer Michelin in partnership with Robert J. Walsh and John Douglas. Ford Kinder also wrote music for Inhumanoids, Gem, Potato Head Kids, Transformers, and My Little Pony. Bangers. Crazy.
You know what's funny is going back, like I know the song so well. This like when you mentioned it yesterday to me, I started singing it while we were playing video games.
Yeah.
But I went back and just did a rewatch between now and then, and I forgot how much they let the song breathe.
Oh yeah.
A lot of dun, 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 and you're like, oh wow, we're really setting the stage. And then there was like a nice pause in the middle where it's just action and piano music, and
It's a wild song.
The song is great. It's definitely a riff on the original opening theme. But what I love is, oh my God, it's just, there's so much exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seeps into kids' heads. Like they learn everything they need to learn in those first few minutes. If they've never seen G.I. Joe, like that catches them up on everything.
Yeah.
yeah, I showed it to my son today, who's 11 years old. I'm like, you got to watch this. It's my favorite thing. And he was into it. And then at one point he's like, how long is this? Because it just kept going. But it introduced all the characters. He knew who everybody was. Oh, that's that guy that's in your office. I'm like, yeah.
It's so crazy. The part where it goes Cobra in the background, I'm just like, I love this. If you're like me and you haven't thought about a lot of these G.I. Joe characters since you were younger, it's so aggressively like just this person, this person, this person. I was like, oh my God, that's he's jumping, he's exploding. Like it's just so rapid fire.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like the open, you're like, it's like revisiting all of them. But one thing that my biggest, I think, complaint for this movie is just the brazen amount of new characters. They're just like all the new toys and action figures. There's like a scene where everyone jumps in a different vehicle near the end.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, clearly this is the new toy line.
Both this and Transformers the movie were like orchestrated specifically. Like the shows themselves were obviously long toy commercials, but these movies in particular were meant to be like, okay, this is what you've had for a couple years. Forget all of this, and we're gonna give you all this new stuff.
It's pretty crazy. We see the Statue of Liberty, a flurry of balloons ascending as Cobra parachutes down. So many characters. As I said, it's just aggressively insane. Then we see Duke standing atop the torch of the statue, and he yells, "Yo, Joe," which I never really thought about, but like, they're Joe. Like, do you yo yourself? Like, that's not... Like, if I just walk around going, "Yo, Dirk!" Like, that seems crazy, but I guess I shouldn't overthink it.
Yo, Joe, go!
Yeah.
Have the same sort of
it's
rally.
Really, that's true. Destro gives Cobra Commander an explosive case, so he glides down and puts the bomb on the statue, which seems like a job for a minion or maybe a missile. But
no, I mean that is like real leading by action, leading from behind, or whatever. He really,
yeah. Duke
it's definitely against his character in any other aspect, but okay.
Duke just punches him off the statue anyway, and then you see Shirtless Ninja and Sport Guy. Who are those characters? Because I tried to look them up.
Shirtless Ninja is Quick Kick.
Quick Kick.
Not a ninja.
Ah, not at all.
He's a kung fu master.
Okay, sorry. Who's Sports Guy?
Sports Guy is probably Bazooka.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And there's also like you might also. This is, oh my God, this is G.I. Joe nerdy. Some of these characters they're parts of like a duo. So if there's Bazooka there, Alpine was probably right there too. He's the African-American guy that has like a grappling hook. They were sort of like, they always played off of each other. They were sort of like Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, no, he probably almost definitely was there. Everyone's there dressed like their main interests, and we get a voiceover to explain what's happening so we don't think this is career day gone awry.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
We get our credits, so we know Don Johnson is involved somehow. And then we see a cool Cobra base in a swamp. Serpentor is there, and he's like, "Cobra Commander, you suck."
Our most dangerous enemy is not G.I. Joe, but your collective incompetence. Hogwash!
Serpentor is in a yellow snake cosplay outfit with two serpents around his neck on a hoverboard that's also a snake, next to a chair that's also a snake. He's a lot. He's a lot to take in.
Do you remember the episodes where they made him?
I don't.
So he's literally a character that's constructed by Dr. Mindbender, the other shirtless man with the monocle.
That's why he says that in the episode.
Yeah. So they literally there's a great miniseries where they go to extract the DNA from warlords all throughout history. So they find like Genghis Khan's remains and
Right.
get his DNA, and they build the ultimate evil villain.
Okay.
And they realize pretty quickly he's a douche.
yeah,
Yeah.
he sucks so hard.
If Cobra Commander was bad at his job, he's even worse.
Yeah. They all sell out Cobra Commander, and I was shocked when Destro was the first to sell him out. But to give you a little feel for Destro, here's a track from hip hop artist Wordburglar. It's called Call Destro.
You got what you need. Got what you need. Got what you need. Got what you need. You can find me selling automatics to the melodramatic. They got the cash, I got a stash. It's a hell of a habit. Well established in the practice of helping the masses blow up each other's stuff. I'm diplomatic, pragmatic. Can't make a business out of acting nice. You're looking at the man who built the mass device. From satellites to plants that grow to massive heights. Got what you need, and I always get my asking price. This ain't a passive fight, keep me out your blasting sights. Less of course, you're prepared to get your asses wiped. That's just a fact of life, grew up in harm's way. And these wrist rockets aren't for cosplay. I am the arms race, amulet wearing super inventor. I even helped create Serpentor, your mentor. Highly skilled tactician, you trying to take me out? Should've started practicing hundreds of years ago. I'll try and make it clearer so you can understand you never ever met a fiercer foe. Look in the mirror, yo, that's beryllium steel. My family heirloom, worn with militant zeal. Ill super skilled as a villain for real. Got the public hating on me like I'm killing some seals. A brilliant heel. Better stop spinning my wheels. Pick up the bill for my meal. And if you're willing to deal, call Destro. They're staking the name. I invented putting snakes on a plane. Call Destro. Got what you need to knock them dead. From battle barges to infrared rocket sleds. Call Destro. For nothing but the best, bro. We accept credit, cash, and checks. Call Destro. We never use old parts. And if I'm not around, ask for Voltar.
What you all the guns is for? Doing jobs for bills, hard to kill. What you all the guns is for? Making money.
Transcarpathia, swamps of the Everglades. Crossing me's the worst mistake you could ever make. Skeletons in my closet, attic full of ghosts. The baddest men alive, laugh at my jokes. Proud and noble with a whole lot of common sense and no tolerance for incompetence. Enjoy the finer things like fistfuls of dollars, luxury castles, wine, disco collars. And when it comes to women, there's no comparing this. The only man who's had Zorana and the Baroness. I'll take care of it, sign right here. Or my iron grenadiers, I have you crying in your beers. To be clear, put every last combatant in the past tense. We're making cash, cause I own all the patents. Military, armaments, research syndicate. Means any war I'm in, I'm winning it. A little bit hard, yeah you bet I'm hard. I got my own code, it starts with your credit card. You wanna win? You better be the highest bidder. Cause as it happens, my top clients slither. Super attack bats, mutant pack rats, souped up goons and platoons with backpacks. Atomic shrink rays, orbital tractor beams. I got it all for every kind of wacky scheme. Call Destro. Whether you're fueling rebel squadrons or looking to duel in the devil's cauldron. Call Destro. As long as they got the money, I'll incite unrest in unstable countries. Call Destro. For nothing but the best, bro. We accept credit, cash, and checks. Call Destro. I'm not someone to put a mark on. You must have me confused with Dark Lawn.
We've returned! When suddenly, a gross alien emerges from the swamp. It produces a four-head eel glaive, like in Krull, and slices through an electric fence. It's a pretty rad introduction to a mysterious character. It also has claws on its fingers that slice through steel, and it can gas people with a lizard loofah. It's a pretty interesting character we have going. Cobra Commander is like, we gotta stop it. Serpentor, you wait here. I'll take all of the other people with me. And then he sees this mysterious stranger and is like, let's go this way. And so he's just selling out Serpentor left and right.
Yes. If something happened to Serpentor, it would be tragic, wouldn't it? We shall stop this assassin. Come, follow me.
The mysterious being takes out all the guards and reveals herself to be Pythona. Did I say that right? Pythona. Mm-hmm.
No.
A vision.
In a memory, great Serpentor. I am part of your destiny. When you were created, my face was etched into your soul. I am Pythona, and now it is time for you to fulfill your destiny. Behold, the broadcast energy transmitter.
She kind of looks like Fever Ray for fans of Fever Ray. She's like, behold, the broadcast energy transmitter, which is right where G.I. Joe is. So it's a great transition to G.I. Joe next to the broadcast emergency transmitter.
One thing that's crazy about this is they, up until like maybe the last 90% of the movie, they say broadcast energy transmitter.
Yeah.
No one says the transmitter or the
No.
BET until later they say BET a couple times.
Yeah.
But the entire thing is broadcast energy transmitter, broadcast energy transmitter. Everyone says it slightly differently and they really emphasize it so kids know it's the broadcast
Yeah.
energy transmitter.
Which is a lot because I stopped typing Cobra Commander in my notes and just put C.C. because I was like, this is a lot. I have to keep saying this.
Dude, it's such a trope in the G.I. Joe series too, because there's always something like the broadcast energy transmitter,
A mass
or
device.
dominator, or
Yes.
the mass device, all this stuff. There's always that weird MacGuffin thing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I really don't know what this thing does. Like, I watched it and I know it does, it powers up things and
Powers
does things. And
everything
then,
up.
but near the end, well, we'll get to what it does
Yeah.
in the end. But I'm like, this thing's really shitty piece of technology.
It's Wi-Fi for electricity.
Yeah. It's
Oh.
crazy.
Yeah, it's transmitting electricity in the air.
Yep. Yeah.
Such a weird, yeah.
We then see Dial Tone and Mainframe, who are having a conversation, and I only know their names because it sounds crazy, but they're like, hey, Dial Tone. Yes, Mainframe.
A catchy tune, isn't it, guys? One more
They
time!
can't hear you, mainframe.
Well, Dial Tone, they're gonna hear about the broadcast energy transmitter all over the world. Pure energy pumped through the air.
Yeah, unlimited power anywhere, anytime we want.
So let's get a little backstory here. Dial Tone. He's G.I. Joe team's electronics and communications expert. His real name is Jack S. Morelli, and he was born in Eugene, Oregon, which I was too. Dial Tone built his own crystal radio set when he was 10, and by 14 he was part of a CB net and had his own ham station by the time he was 16. Dial Tone made all his own equipment buying parts with quarters, which he earned by bagging groceries. So kids, when you're playing with Dial Tone, remember bagging groceries.
And I always played him as French when I played with him as an actor.
I
Is
can
he-
totally see that.
Yeah.
He's a good stand-in for Dabney Coleman and Cloak and Dagger.
What?
For
There's
Jack-
a
Oh,
cloak
yeah.
and dagger figure?
No, I wish, right?
Oh.
There's like 13 different versions of Xyloton in different colors. There's one that looks exactly like Jack Black, but anyways.
Were you guys good at rubber banding your G.I. Joes?
Yeah, you know what? One thing I do regret is there was a point where Bat Troopers, you could just buy them in abundance. Like G.I. Joe was starting to decline, and Toys R Us or Lionel Playworld, whichever one was where I was, they would just do these deep discounts on Star Wars and G.I. Joe, and I would just buy them up. But I would buy all of these Bat figures and then make cyborgs out of people. And so I would
Rad.
take them apart, and then I never put them back. So I'm like, I have like a half so-and-so
Mm-hmm.
cyborg, and but yeah, I did it a lot.
Yeah, I do a lot of G.I. Joe fixing these days. I have a whole like fixing kit
Oh, wow.
downstairs. My thing as a kid was for some reason I'd always break the crotches on every figure.
Yeah.
They'd all lose their thumbs when I was like biting the hands to try to get them to grip the guns well.
Just maimed figures. I played a game with my G.I. Joes where I put them in a bucket of water and dropped rocks in, and whoever wasn't trapped by the rocks survived. I guess
Wow.
I got bored with story, and I was, I love those
Got the
songs.
torture.
Yeah, very into the torture. Back in the film, though, the BET works and turns on all the electric devices on the planet, I guess. Cobra arrives and is just destroying everything, and we see Snowjob and Dr. Mindbender. So let's get into Dr. Mindbender. Dr. Bender was at one time a peace-loving orthodontist. He built a machine to relieve dental pain using electronic brainwave stimulation. Unfortunately, he tested it on himself. It went haywire, causing him to become hateful, deceitful, and vain. Though, experiencing brain damage, he retained his sense of scientific skill and intellect. Unfortunately, choosing to use it for the purpose of evil, he's also shirtless and has a monocle. I added that part.
So much to unpack. I do think those qualities were always in him. He's just looking for excuses, but always 1 second away from a nipple slip.
Yep.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
appreciate an orthodontist with the 6-pack.
In the comic book, or even on some of the like key art for him or whatever, not so much in the cartoon, but he's got like just ripped, like 0% body fat, which is maybe why he's proud and he's showing it off,
Yeah, it's I saw him and I was like, oh, he's a magician. But then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, orthodontist. Okay.
Oh, he's the most scientific out of the bunch.
Yes. Yeah.
What I love about these backstories is when they launched G.I. Joe, they did the same thing with Transformers, but specifically with G.I. Joe, they hired one person to write all these backstories. And it's the same guy that wrote the comic book series for like years and years. So Larry Hama came up with all this stuff.
Oh,
and
Larry Hama. I think he's in the movie The Ambulance.
probably.
Yeah.
He's big in the Marvel world, so I know like they got in some stuff for that movie. So like it's funny you're making jokes about like some of these the writers' names and everything sound like the G.I. Joe characters and stuff like Buzz and stuff like this. Some of the writers and everything, they are G.I. Joe characters.
What?
And Larry Hama will come up when we get into the new recruit section.
Okay. Interesting. Duke blows up Serpentor's snake glider and activates the BT, which turns on all of Joe's weapons. And then Cobra Commander's like, retreat, just leave Serpentor. So the G.I. Joes split, so half of them go to chase Cobra, and the other half stay with the BET. The Joes are trying to kill the fleeing Cobras, but the Cobras pass through a cave, and we see alien trees. And I wrote here, I never realized the Dreadnoks are British.
Oh, mates, me eyes are playing tricks. Hey, Governor, what's this all mean?
We are safe! Safe!
I thought they lived in a swamp in like the bayou, but
They do.
but they're
You know what
clearly
it is?
British.
It's this they were trying to go for that punk aesthetic,
Ah, okay.
right? So they were like, I guess some of them were just like the Sex Pistols. So they would do that thing where like some of them would just have British accents because that was oi punk or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It really caught me off guard here. The Dreadnoks are a ragtag group consisting of Zartan, Zorana, Xandar, Zanya. But to give you further insight here, once again, Wordburglar with that guy with the disguises.
Those prone for thrown barrels. Bad omen, catch me roaming at your own peril. My bow and arrows zoned to your bone marrow. You know something's up, like you just got shown tarot. No dinero, might wanna leave the coke alone before these local yokels go postal in your mobile home. Change clothes, next thing you know I'm your total clone. Cloaked in your cologne, on your phone, in your vocal tone. What you heard wasn't overblown. Across the globe I'm known, till the day that my soul's atoned. But being broke something I don't condone. So I stay social with moguls and scope their gold. There's plenty of it on the Cobra throne, so my allegiance is old. Well, at least until they're overthrown. The ghost with chrome, cosmic biker hitman. Been called it all from sardine to Dristan. You get the gist, man. Now tell me something of interest, cause this ain't a hologram in my vest. I've stared death in the abyss square in the face. So fair warning, beware, I may imitate. I come in all sizes and every likeness. The number one cause of identity crisis. Made more dimes off of all of my vices. And if fashion's a crime, my closet is priceless. You know me, I'm that guy with the disguises. Improvise to survive, full of surprises. Live off a diet that lies and surmises. From the dusk to the time the sun rises.
Watch me. Sauteing camouflage. I can tell when I look at you. Sauteing camouflage. I can tell when I look at you. Watch me. Sauteing camouflage.
Since age 10, shadows were my friends, where I blended in. Shedded dead skin, sensitive to sun setting in. No precedent, style born out of wedlock. So only answer to myself, like the Dreadnoks. Guess not, only how she called it treason. I was the last to hear hard master breathing. Seasoned as St. Cyr, prepared for any task. Cause in this world, we all wear many masks. Holographed from a paranormal swamp shack. Master of disguise, lies in Mortal Kombat. You got cash? Perfect, I want that. So let's chat the conditions of my contract. Money talks, but I act on challenges. I'm who you call when you can't let the balance hinge. And where my talent lives will cost you change. Cause what you call impossible, I call it costume change. The name is the same, first and last. Whatever you need, I've done worse than that. So perhaps, as you inhale, you may wanna ask exactly who you're looking at when you take your last. I come in all sizes and every likeness. The number one cause of
And we're back. Zartan was my favorite G.I. Joe. Do you guys have a favorite G.I. Joe figure? I liked him because he looked like the Road Warrior.
He's great. And he was great because he changed colors too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, obviously it's dial tone.
Right.
But his sister Zorana is a big one. She's like super punk and fun.
Yep.
I don't know. I love her. I love her design.
Later on in the comic books, I know we're not getting into the cartoon world here, but like later on,
go anywhere you want.
They kind of got sick of it just being like the cartoon, and eventually characters started dying, like for real. And so eventually Zartan killed Serpentor. It was this total
rad
where he from a really long distance fired an arrow and assassinated him. There was also an issue right around that time where a random lackey, like Pit Viper, it's like this infamous G.I. Joe issue where he just killed a whole bunch of G.I. Joes, like just mowed them down with a Gatling gun. I think Quick Kick was one of them actually. And people are like, what? Like back then, no one killed anybody, and it was like, oops, and it was a whole controversy. So I've always loved the mystery of Zartan, and I always thought he was really badass.
I also love that despite the climate wherever they are, no one changes for the climate. Like, if you're dressed for the Arctic and you're at the island, like, you just look crazy. And if you're wearing a floral print button-up shirt, that's what you're wearing in the Arctic. Like, there's just no...
I do like that Dr. Mindbender later on wears a smart coat.
Oh, does he get he does get a coat.
Destro's totally always on point.
Yes.
Just the best.
Next, the Joes show up, and Roadblock is like, kill everyone. He's like, kill crazy Roadblock. It's insane. Which makes you kind of wonder what Roadblock's story is, so I'll share that with you now. Within the heart of a man lies the desire to become a gourmet chef. You wouldn't know that by looking at Roadblock. Roadblock was setting to go to France's Escoffier school by working as a bouncer until a recruiter convinced him the army can train him just as well. He was so appalled by the menu and preparation techniques in the army kitchen that he requested a transfer. And that's how Roadblock got into infantry. Amazing. Absolutely incredible backstory. He doesn't reference food at all. But
there are episodes.
Okay, good.
In the Christmas episode.
This is why you're here.
Cooks the turkey.
Oh, yes.
That's a still that I share. I share a lot during Christmas.
I just like the sentence that you just said in the Christmas episode. Roadblock cooks the turkey. I need that in my life. Now, Nemesis Enforcer arrives and flips his glider and pulls him underground. Nemesis Enforcer is a big dude with bird wings and blade wristlets, I think is the best way to describe him, unless anyone has a better...
Baraka.
Yeah.
He's very Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, did you introduce Globulus Sweat, or am I getting...
No, we'll get to him. We haven't really seen him yet. Suddenly from the earth, red Mothmen pop up. I don't know who these things are, but they just kind of are there. I do love how this movie's not interested in telling you anything that's about to happen, so you're just constantly like, what is this? They had this... Okay. Yes, they make that sound constantly. Nemesis catches Snowjob and slaps Cobra Commander. Wait, who's Snowjob? Let's see. Okay. Snowjob was born in Rutland, Vermont. His name, Harlan W. Moore. Snowjob was a member of the U.S. Olympic biathlon team. His original motivation for joining the Army was because of the privileges and special training for Olympic athletes such as he would get. His application for the Joe team came as a complete surprise for everyone. He was accepted, nonetheless. No notes.
And he's been a valuable member ever since, so they were forever doubting his application.
Seriously. Oh, it's so good. Snowjob.
I just put a snow trooper in all white that has a fiery red beard.
Yes,
Definitely not hiding in the snow.
Yeah.
And I you've commented on this. Everyone just wears what they're interested in. So
Yes.
one dude's a sailor, one guy's a shirtless kung fu guy. They'll wear that in every all weather. The snow guy will wear full snow attire.
Goggles, everything.
Everywhere they go. It's crazy.
It's really good because then the more people they cram into a frame in the cartoon, like the more crazy it looks. Like it's just like, whoa.
One's a red ninja. Like, meanwhile, Cobra has uniforms. Sure, the top guys get to
Yeah.
a little bit of flair, but there's still some sort of something there.
Yeah, it's a lot. Pythona says, "Come with me." Cobra Commander tries to escape, but Nemesis Enforcer is too much for him.
Hogwash!
And next, the Dreadnoks aren't so sure about a Serpentor rescue.
Right, the Joes? Are you balmy?
We don't know who you are, where you come from, or even what side you're on. Why should we risk our necks on your behalf?
But Pythona is like, check out this huge gem, and Zartan's like, all right.
That is like a really awesome line. Like, I forgot where he's like, does this answer your question? And I think he's like, a gem like this answers all my questions. It was like, I'm saying it wrong, but it was, the delivery is so theatrical. It was like a real, there's a couple lines in here where I'm like, that is a real, that's real good stuff.
Does this answer your question?
A gem of that size answers all my questions.
Love that concept of like, where are you even gonna take that to sell it?
Yes.
But then there's dialogue like the G.I. Joe side where it's like, how you doing? See, we're gonna go get the guys and clobber them up and whack them real good. And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, and then there's no explanation because they're like, you've watched this series, so you know that Zartan loves gems and stuff. But if you haven't seen it in 30 plus years, I was like, oh, he must like gems? I guess that's how he gets him to do stuff.
He's paid in gold bars a lot. As you do.
I mean, he's a terrorist. He doesn't have a bank account.
That's true. That's true. RoboCop. Did I catch you in time? Are you still there? Remember when Paul McCrane gets all melty from toxic waste and then splats on a car? Imagine that movie without that scene. Would it still be good? Okay, bad example, RoboCop rules, but his death adds flavor. And you know what else adds flavor? Marshall's Hot Sauce. You can wake up any boring meal with habanero carrot curry or serrano ginger lemongrass, just to name a few. These delicious and flavorful sauces will have you grinning bigger than Tarman in Return of the Living Dead. Marshall's Hot Sauce even has a new line of seasonings, including an incredible barbecue rub, where they soak dates in whiskey and then freeze-dry them and powder them to add a little sweetness with no added sugar. There's also chicken marinade and even a volcano sparkle that'll make your body melt, just like in the movie Body Melt. The best part is you can enter VHUS Podcast at checkout for 20% off. So liven up those meals and your taste buds at marshallshotsauce.com and enter VHS Podcast for 20% off. And now, back to the show. Back in Joetown, they decide to look for the other half of the G.I. Joe team that's missing, and Beachhead is training the new recruits. Beachhead. Let's get down to Beachhead. His real name is Wayne R. Sneeden. He was born and raised in Auburn, Alabama, living in abject poverty. It's just a cruel detail that led to him being bullied and tormented by his classmates and peers, one of which was notorious lizard man Clay Cox. Throughout his growing years, he always was tuned into WEGL 91.1 FM, the college radio station, in hopes of becoming more than what those who taunted him believed he could be. Sneeden became an overachiever and ended up valedictorian of his high school through hard work, unwavering discipline, and a keen mind. Beachhead.
What was his? It was his college radio station.
Yeah, who's Lizard Man Clay Cox?
Wait, what's the radio station?
WEGL 91.1 FM.
Okay, I'm gonna look at. We got to see what college he went to here. I'll just.
That's a good point. Also, I looked up Lizard Man Clay Cox, and aside from finding a politician now, I found no G.I. Joe history.
Auburn University.
Right. Okay. So he was raised there, went to that college. Didn't move around a lot, probably because of the poverty that they mentioned.
Yeah.
Scholarship.
Man. So there's 5 recruits. They all look insane. The Tunnel Rat and Big Lob are kind of paired together to navigate a giant checkerboard that just explodes constantly. I didn't know either of these characters. Big Lob has not a lot of backstory. He's just a former basketball player who speaks in sports commentator jargon. He's born in Chicago. His real name's Bradley J. Sanders. That's all they could really dig up on Big Lob.
It's because he never got an action figure, so they never had to write a full bio.
Oh, okay. All right. What about Tunnel Rat? Did he got a...
Tunnel Rat is Larry Hama.
Oh!
Yeah, and I think it's like an abbreviated thing, but I'm 99% sure that Larry Hama was in Vietnam doing Tunnel Rat work, so that was his way of putting himself into the series and show and everything.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, Tunnel Rat does find a tunnel right away and just gets right in there. and it totally works to his advantage. Big Lob is just narrating his own move all the way through.
Big Lob makes his move. Big Lob goes for the goal. Whoa! He cuts cross court, sidestepping the opposition. He executes a perfect 10 dive. The goal line is in sight.
And then next we meet Law and his dog Order. As they play catch with a bomb, two characters they introduced that never come back.
Yeah. These new recruits are so weird in that like only like a couple of them kind of go on to do anything in the show.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Police Academy Force, Citizens on Patrol.
Yeah.
A couple go on to be on the rest of the movies, but the rest are just there for the film.
That makes sense. I wrote here, Beachhead sucks. I'm just not a fan of Beachhead. He seems like a real jerk. I don't know. Chuckles is there, and he manually throws a missile, which blows something up. Chuckles' backstory is that he's born in Little Rock, Arkansas. His name is Philip M. Provost. Chuckles is naturally likable, which has made him well-suited for undercover operations. He's aware of the consequences of his actions being found out, but he's also confident in his ability to talk his way out of every situation. Which he says not a word in this movie.
Yeah, he throws a missile, which has to weigh a ton, at a vehicle, and within throwing distance, I think he would be collateral damage for sure.
I think it's weird that his design is like kind of like if you ordered Miami Vice through Wish or something. It's like with the Hawaiian shirt and everything. They even cast Don Johnson in this movie, so it's like I think there was something to that. But at the same time, he's like this weird lugging meathead guy who never speaks. It's such a weird character. And it's like I remember having the action figure as a kid, and even then being like, what is this?
Yeah.
And yet he's like a weirdly fan favorite. When they did the new versions of the toys, when they did his character, like it sold out in minutes. It's like,
oh wow,
who are these Chuckles fans?
Well, there is a song that we're not going to play in the episode, but is from Wordburglar. That is Chuckles' whole backstory, which is pretty fantastic, so people should check out the album. Next, Jinx is a red ninja. She spars with Beachhead, and then we meet Falcon, who is casually giving a lady a tour of the base. I forgot Jinx's name, but I had this figure, and I thought she was awesome. I liked pretty much all the ninja-type figures.
Jinx was awesome because my mom wouldn't buy me like the girl toys, the girl figures.
Yeah.
Like I never had a Scarlet or a Baroness or anything like that. But like Jinx snuck in, like she didn't realize it was a girl. And I was like, yes.
Got one.
I don't know. I remember that being a win as a kid.
My cousin Todd, he collected G.I. Joes also. And I remember 6th or 7th grade, something going over to his house and like just walking through his room and like something catching my eye and looking back, and he had all his G.I. Joes displayed and like Jinx and another character like in the middle of something while everyone was watching.
Wrestling.
And I was like, note to self, not out of the ordinary, whatever. But later on, I'd be like, oh, a different position. Like every time I come, I'm like, I never really addressed it with him, but I was always like, so when she came up in the show, I was like, no, it's like that scene in Boogie Nights.
That's not why she was one of my favorites. Just to clarify, no shame in people that like her. Anyway, moving right along, Duke is pissed, so Heather, the lady, leaves. She pulls up to a lake and disrobes to a swimsuit, which in the original script was nude, but they didn't want a PG-13. So we learn it's Zorana, right? Mm-hmm. And she has an earring that recorded everything. Pythona is like, tonight we free Serpentor. And next, Falcon kind of sexually harasses Jinx. I don't know any other way to put it. It's a weird scene.
That doesn't age well.
No, it's that 80s like Han Solo, crowding Princess Leia in the room. Like, you're going to fall in love with me. Or in Blade Runner, or all those films, it was sort of like, you're going to fall in love. Yeah. Okay, I will.
Yeah, it's not great. But meanwhile, Cobra bursts out Serpentor because Falcon isn't at his post.
But, like, they went through all of this work to get the dreadnoughts and everything, and then all of a sudden the Cobra Law people just came in and opened everything up themselves.
Yeah, they just did it.
For the most part, yeah.
Everyone else just gets to watch and be like, oh, wow.
Oh, thanks for bringing us along.
That is cool. We next see a giant floating grub with green men inside, and it's steered with strings. I love this, and it's never discussed or they just move right past it. It's like Dune stuff. I was just like, this is awesome. I like this.
So for the longest time, this movie kind of got a bad rep because of all the organic stuff that didn't like imbued into the show because it was again so military and boxy and vehicles and this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden it's like weird bug things. And I mean, that's always kind of been in the show. There's always been like weird sea monsters and space monsters and stuff like that. But this one really like doubled down. It was great.
It was really polarizing. I hated Cobra Law. I hated the changing of Cobra Commander's backstory.
Yeah.
It ruined him as a character, all these things. But now I really do appreciate all the organic tools and everything. It's really cool.
It's weird too, because they do the exact same thing in Transformers the movie. Like they take away all the boxy designs and bring in all new weird spherical designs and odd futuristic stuff and quintessons and weird things. I don't know. It was definitely like a directive. They're like, let's go organic.
Yeah, I remember feeling the same way. Like I was like, I don't like this. I don't like what's happening. This is not the characters that I want to follow. And now in hindsight, I really enjoy it actually a lot. And I appreciate the weird departures, the introductions of these new characters. Although, and we'll get to something, I don't remember Globulus looking the way that they look for a long period in this movie because, well, we'll get to it. Because the ship lands and they're greeted by a carpet of crabs and the leader of all the gross insanity, which is Globulus, born in the Himalayas as the ruler of the secret race of Cobra La, to live for centuries, possibly even as long as 1,000,000 years. His people have perfected biotechnology that has guaranteed him near immortality. They've replaced just about every part of his body at some point in his lifespan, except for his brain and central nervous system. He believes that he must survive at all costs so that his people may rise and be the dominant species of Earth. That's the backstory.
He was telling his story about how mankind uses technology.
Yeah, we get
then
to
we
that too.
retreated for centuries. The timeline doesn't add up here. Also, it's weird to have a snake, cold-blooded reptile-based race living in the frozen Himalayas. But maybe no one will look there.
It's such a weird, like, the Savage Land is like that in the Marvel comics, too. It's like, why is it that inside of the ice it has to be the balmiest, like, jungle?
Right.
Yes. This is also the part where Globulus says he created Serpentor, and Dr. Mindbender is like, no, that's not what happened at all. But no one listens to an insane ex-dentist. That's just the truth.
Supreme ruler of this kingdom of Cobra-La. It was I who created you, Serpentor. You are mine.
No! Serpentor is the product of my genetic engineering! Silence, Doctor! But we combed the tombs of history's most powerful leaders for DNA!
Didn't it ever occur to you that such a brilliant plan was beyond the capacity of even your fine intelligence?
But it...
You perceive the facts correctly, Destro. I implanted the idea and the skill in Dr. Mindbender's rather pedestrian brain with this, a psychic motivator.
I offer you my most enthusiastic obedience.
And we too. Then, so say we all.
Also of note, Globulus travels by flying amphibian meatball, which is what I was like, this isn't what he looks like. He has like a snake body, which shows up way later. But for a long time, I was like, why has he got this flying green tomato? They start the trial of Cobra Commander, who is suspended inside a giant clam restrained by man-sized clam meat, which is somehow also not a G.I. Joe name. But it could be. Man-sized clam meat's real name is Lazarus Applebuns, and he was born in Alpharetta, Georgia, to a feuding couple of magicians. See, it's pretty easy to do these backstories. I mean. So Falcon is also at a trial of sorts, and Duke says, be lenient, he's my brother. I really like how they have these things simultaneously happening that are for the Joes are having a trial, and Cobra's having a trial. It's nice.
Half-brother.
Oh, half-brother, that's right. Thank you.
Jeez, dude.
I know, I'm going to get so many letters. So they send him to the slaughterhouse, and back in the clam, the Dreadnoks chime in again, and Globulus lets the web of remembrance tell us the history.
Let the web of remembrance tell the tale. 40,000 years ago, the glory of Cobra-La dominated this planet, but an age of ice destroyed much of what we had built, and with it began the time of the barbarians. Surprisingly, they evolved.
ask me, some of them did not evolve.
40,000 years ago, Cobra ruled the planet, but there was an ice age. And then in the flashback, we see Cobra Commander's face. He's got a bunch of eyes. This was one of the biggest things that happened for my friend Aaron and I. I have distinct memories of us being at Ridgeview Playground talking about how we saw part of Cobra Commander's face because he had that plate on for so long. I don't know. It was like just a huge thing. And then where it goes from here, we found deeply upsetting. But to see it, what his face looked like, we're like, oh my God.
This is like finding out what Dr. Claw looks like in Inspector Gadget.
Did they ever reveal that?
They did. So they didn't do it on the cartoon, but they made a toy.
Okay.
They hid it on the toy, so if you bought it and opened it, you get to see, and it was really not great. But it's still kind of cool because they do the same thing in the comics. They keep almost showing you what's under Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander. It's like, yeah, almost, but no, you're never actually going to get it. But finally in the cartoon, you did.
It's interesting because in the comics, and I think for a while they didn't really get too much into the cartoon, but like Cobra Commander was like just a guy that was upset with, he's like a radical homeland terrorist basically. So they're like, man, maybe we need to start getting away from that in the kids cartoon and have a better backstory because I mean nowadays, like if you just like map out his backstory and stuff, it's pretty kind of gross a little bit. When I was in second or third grade, I remember because I watched G.I. Joe. They're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said I wanted to be a terrorist. Because of G.I. Joe. Because in that, it was just like, I'm going to put my face on the moon. It wasn't like, and I wasn't obviously keeping up with Iran-Contra and all that stuff going on or whatever. But now I'm like, oh, I see. I get it. And it's wild how this whole Cobra isn't, is like a homeland terrorist organization. It's really kind of creepy, honestly.
Yeah.
If they ever make a real movie, not these like weird ones that came out, they've just got to keep it in the 80s.
Yeah.
Low stakes.
Sure.
Yeah. I love the teacher that went home and was like, a kid said they wanted to be a terrorist? And like, what's going on with the youth of today?
Yeah.
We learn flying spores will shoot into space and de-evolve the human race. That's just revealed at this point in the film. And Cobra Commander's found guilty and sprayed with something, and he becomes super scaly. So I was very unhappy about this happening. Meanwhile, Falcon gets booted out of a helicopter, and we meet Sergeant Slaughter and his dudes, which are called...
Renegades?
The Renegades.
Look at what dropped in, brothers. 170 pounds of air pollution.
I've seen Putty with more backbone.
Hey!
I do not like his face. Let us remove it, yes?
3 more action figures.
Yeah. Sergeant Slaughter's real name is Robert Rudolph Remus. Robert Rudolph Remus, difficult to say. Born in Michigan, Detroit, professional wrestler, he was the first celebrity immortalized by entering canon of the G.I. Joe people. He voiced his own character. That would be weird if he didn't.
I love in the credits at the beginning of the film, it says Sergeant Slaughter playing Sergeant Slaughter.
Yes.
Okay, like Bingo the dog playing Bingo the dog.
Yeah,
Okay, I got it.
Well, that makes
What?
sense.
There was a couple other real, like Refrigerator Perry was in that.
He gets one. Yeah, and Rocky Balboa, Sly Stallone was going to get a Rocky Balboa figure, which is kind of real.
They go to throw Cobra Commander in with the Joes, but the Joes make a break for it, knock some of the guards into giant pits of claws. We don't explain that at all. There's just claw pits. Serpentor says the world will soon belong to Globulus. The Joes fight their way out, and Cobra Commander says, "Stop, it's a trap." And it is.
It's a trap.
Yes. Tentacles wrap up the Joes. Cobra Commander and Roadblock escape together, but not before Nemesis Enforcer blinds Roadblock. So he picks up Cobra Commander, who says, "I'll be your eyes. Run."
I can't see!
I'll be your eyes. Run!
No notes there. They escape in a river, and Nemesis Enforcer can't follow because what's his weakness? Rivers. It's probably on the back of the card.
This is another interesting parallel, by the way, with the Transformers movie, because it's sort of like the changing of the guard and the new stuff. And like in it, Cobra Commander in this has a fall from grace and he's on trial and thrown away. And same thing happened to Megatron, but also Starscream, voiced by the same actor, Chrissy voice, also met his demise at the hands of the lead. It's just weird kind of parallel stories between both of them.
Both of them had a lot of trials in them too, and a lot of guilty verdicts.
That's interesting. I wonder if kids were very into trials at the time. The alien rockets begin launching, but they need the BET. As Roadblock and Cobra Commander climb out of the river, Cobra Commander's faceplate has come off.
Hogwash!
Deeply disturbing. He's got a crazy snake face and extra eyes, and he's wrapped around Roadblock, who's walking through the snow. This is an image that I'd completely forgot about, but when I saw it again, I was like, oh, this is not what I want.
I was once a man! A man!
Yeah, it's very Gollum-like.
Yeah, it is. Sergeant Slaughter makes Falcon do dishes and work out, and then Duke and Slaughter talk, and it's just Beefcake Central. Could these men be any more manlier? It's just impossible. Beefcake Central, also not a G.I. Joe, but probably could have been. Sergeant Slaughter says we'll infiltrate the Terror Dome on Cobra Island, which is a rad sentence, no matter how it's said.
Dinner already?
Not unless you like snake burgers. We're gonna infiltrate the Terrordrome on Cobra Island.
That's suicide.
Yes, horoscopes say it's bad day to travel.
Falcon says no weapons, so they're just going to go in unarmed. Luckily, they find a ladder that leads right to a crawl space that they enter with no problem.
Each other's bases. They just walk right in and out of these places. Twice the Cobras did it. Another one, it's just like, no, 3, because the Baroness was dressed up in another.
That's the next.
She was in, when they hit the BET.
Oh man, I'm doing spoilers left and right. Sorry.
No, that's literally the next sentence is that Joe hides the BET, but the Baroness was in disguise. So Sergeant and the dudes infiltrate the base, and then they witness Cobra Law's plan to get the BET. There's so much spying that happens so quickly that you forget that there's even spying involved. And then they send Falcon to go get the word out, and Sergeant and crew start just wrecking fools. I love that Falcon has to use a snake-shaped microphone in this scene, because it's like Cobra's just constantly like, that's got to be snake-shaped, and that too. Like
is our fetish.
The urinals must be giant cobra heads that they just pee into.
Okay. I'm going to update my podcast setup. I don't think my mic is good enough now.
It's got to be snake-shaped. Oh my gosh. So Falcon is apprehended, and Sergeant Slaughter and crew head back into Serpentor's just slapping Falcon over and over, and we see blood on Falcon's face. That's the first blood in G.I. Joe, right?
Yes.
Nemesis Enforcer hits Sergeant Slaughter with a face hugger. A bomb goes off, and somehow people escape on jet skis. I don't know what hovers and what's not hovering in this cartoon.
All of the vehicles in G.I. Joe have always sort of defied
Yes.
aerodynamics, but in this one especially, they're just like it's a blocky thing that's in a vehicle and takes off, and somehow it maneuvers and flies while they're shooting and not actually holding any controls whatsoever.
Yeah. No. It's wild. A dome raises from the ashes. It's Serpentor and his peeps. They're pissed. And meanwhile, Cobra attacks where the BET is. This all happens so quickly that it might as well just be one sentence. The Joes retaliate but are attacked by planes shooting tentacle bombs. And then the Rawhides, is that a group of people? I put Rawhides.
Oh, yeah, I think that's the name for the new recruits.
Okay, so the Rawhides are in a double helicopter situation with Chuckles on top, underneath propellers, firing a pistol. It's so crazy looking.
Yes! I mean, like, this dude is right next to the propeller blade. It is the dumbest thing you'll ever see. Like, the missile thing was dumb, but this is like, I'm going to climb into the worst place.
Well, I love that, like, they established that he needs, like, he's the meathead, right? So he's the one to go twist the blades because they couldn't quite get it hot wired correctly.
Yeah.
But then he stays up there. It's like, why?
Oh, man. Well, the tentacles get bombed onto the double helicopter, which crashes through an entire building of metal and glass, which is, I love a lot of the animation in this. The whole crash is pretty dramatic, but Chuckles somehow lives even though he's on the top of it's amazing. Cobra's airplanes show up, and then Serpentor's like, deploy the Marauders! And I was like, what's a Marauder? Nope, sorry, no, they're just giant bugs. That's all you get. This is what's happening right now, and I absolutely love this section of the film.
Cobra, maintain air attack and deploy the Marauders!
They're giant bug lizard worm snakes, I guess. That's a good way to describe it. Cobra has the BET for 1 second before Serpentor is like, abandon it! Everything's happening so fast in the cartoon. Then he rockets Falcon, and then they go to kill Falcon. Duke intervenes. Duke is struck by Serpentor's snake in the heart. And I was like, this is the sequence that I remembered so much from being a kid. The death of Duke, only he's in a coma.
And everyone's just bawling.
Yes.
I was going to say, the funny part about this is obviously he dies.
Yeah.
Everything is just voiceover that they add. Like none of it's never like with lips that match or anything. It's just like, oh, we heard Doc say off screen, he's in a coma.
And then I love when Hawk turns around and he's like,
Yes,
he's like
yeah.
trying to hold back the tear. I'm a murderer. I'm a murderer.
Real
So good.
men cry.
Yeah. I wrote here, we see men cry. That's good, right? I love how stone cold Duke is in his dying words to Falcon, his half brother. He says, "Promise me you'll try to get your act together."
Promise me you'll try to get your act together.
It's just brutal.
It's just like, you're not my full brother, you're my half brother. It's like the paper cuts.
Yeah.
This relationship over and over again.
It's so mean. Next, the BET activates the space seeds, and Globulus says once his time worm finishes its journey that the world will end.
I just want to take samples out of this and just make the most awesome electronic album.
Seriously, Time Worm is my new favorite synth pop group. It's a stick with a worm that climbs up it, and that's how he knows time, people. It's time worms. Self-explanatory. Falcon and the Rawhides are tasked with staying back and guarding the base. The exact wrong job for Falcon, who has proven that he sucks at guarding things. Meanwhile, Roadblock is walking in the snow with a fully snake Cobra commander who's babbling about being a man. He has no legs, hella eyes.
Useless. Oh, useless. I was a man. Yes. Oh, yes. I was a man. I was a man. Yes.
Stop saying that, you hear you making me crazy.
Was a man. Men may rule, but serpents never. Was.
You're going snake house, man. You gotta resist.
Yes, was once a man.
And they're found by Lifeline, and Cobra Commander disappears. What's that? Who's Lifeline? Well, he was born in Seattle, Washington, Edwin C. Steen. He was a pacifist. His belief was so intense that he once was in a pool of water with piranha. When a Joe extended a rifle to pull him out, Lifeline would not grab it. Okay, well, that's that's the whole thing.
What I love about Lifeline is he is a pacifist, but his character came like you know, I have the molded stuff on their chests and everything. He came with a gun.
Oh,
always the one like out of place
Right.
thing where it's like,
there's a second piece here. Despite serving as a medic, his father, a priest, is not happy his son joins a military force like G.I. Joe, but he eventually comes to terms with his son's choice. I don't know what a child's supposed to do with that information, but I love that it's there.
If G.I. Joe was like a Netflix show or like some prestige HBO, every episode would be like, all of a sudden, Lifeline, are you listening? And it would go back to his story, and you're no son of mine if you're joining G.I. Joe. And then later on, it like resolves at the end of the episode, and then later on, there's an episode like, quick kick, put on a shirt. And he goes back to his childhood. Oh, that'd be the best.
Quick Kick would have lived if he had a bulletproof vest on, but he hated shirts. That was the fall. Back in the movie, the Joes are attacking Cobra Law, and Serpentor is like, sound the alarms, but Globulus is watching his time worm, and he's like, yeah, I know. Roadblock can see again, but Cobra Commander will never be a person again. I can't believe that. They do him so dirty in this movie. He just slithers off. It's pretty sad. Tunnel Rat finds a tunnel, but the Dreadnoks are there and supposed to close it, and the Joes just knock him out. So I don't even know why I even included some of these things, because it happens, and then it's over. The Joes attack from the air, and Big Lob puts a grenade on his flying whatever that is. It explodes, it crashes into an alien plant, and then out of it falls Scarlet? She was in it?
So this could be a mistake, or it could be like the characters that came and then got trapped like with Hawk and everything. I guess she was there with them.
Okay.
Or she was there in the initial one, and then it was just weird that she was there when Duke died.
Sean, you buy a lot of novelizations of movies, and a lot of times there's like in those they explain something that isn't explained. Like, is there a G.I. Joe the movie novelization that you've read?
I wish there was. There is not. That would be something that would be amazing. Honestly, I'd love to find a copy of the script. I've never really looked too hard, but I wonder if some of that stuff is in there too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just left to wonder where Scarlet came from. And for anyone that doesn't know who Scarlet is, she's an extremely talented woman. She's already a gifted martial artist, thanks largely to her three brothers, Brian, Frank, and Sam, and their father, all four of whom are instructors. Shanna began training at the age of 9 and earned her first black belt 6 years later. She eventually enlisted in the Army, served in Vietnam, underwent all sorts of training, finally settling on intelligence work. She stands as the only member of the Joe team who has duties that are kept confidential from the rest of the team. Despite all her deadly skills and serious work, she still manages to have a sense of humor. That's Scarlet, everybody.
You have to.
It helps the work. Anyway, a fisticuffs ensues, and everyone's fighting. I'm pretty sure we see Hawk snap someone's neck in this scene. I think you hear a crack sound. I was like, he killed someone.
Knowing is half the battle. The other half is murder.
Murder. Living with the acts of your own deeds.
And it's, it's truth.
Globulus is glowing in power with the BET. He calls upon organisms as they are crazy giant mutant bugs of one or another. Sergeant Slaughter knocks out somebody, and then Tunnel Rat's swallowed but blows his way out of a giant worm. I loved that part. That seemed
it's like a moving tunnel.
Yeah. Another tunnel. This worm's just a tunnel. Giant spiders attack Falcon and Jinx. I love that too. Pythona and Jinx fight as Sergeant and Nemesis brawl, and Falcon and Serpentor are fighting. They're all paired off in this section. Pythona accidentally slices the giant clam. I just love that they kill the clam. Falcon is choking on Serpentor's snake, and Cobra Commander enters the fight. A giant crevice opens, and Pythona falls in. And Slaughter keeps jumping on Enforcer. This is probably my favorite attack in the whole show, because he delivers a line and then throws himself on his body and then delivers another line. It's like 6 times he does it.
This is for Gung-Ho, Alpine, and Bazooka! This is for Falcon! This is for me! This is for Duke! And this is for the U.S. Army!
Yeah, it's like, I need to win a wrestling match
Yes.
in order for me to appear in this film.
How many wrestling moves can I do?
It was like the time The Rock was on Star Trek Voyager. And it was like right before he started his acting career. And it was a wrestling episode where like him and the Borg woman fought. But he wasn't allowed to lose. It was like, I don't know, whatever the deal was. But it was very much like, let's put you in a wrestling situation in this.
Does he wear like a Star Trek outfit? Could they put that on
They're all
him?
like spandex pajamas.
He could wear that though? Did not look totally insane.
Well, now it's like, once it hit the 90s, it was all like what people wear to the airport now. Like yoga pants, athletic leisure wear.
A neck pillow.
Yeah.
Falcon puts Serpentor's cape into the fan of his hover snake chair, and Serpentor flies out of there, and Falcon faces Globulus. Globulus's green tomato raft breaks open, and he's Snake from the waist down. This is the guy I remembered from my childhood. I was like, I love this guy.
Well, they had the action figure was like a really big blister pack where it had like the 2 smaller figures, and then got to make room for this big stupid tail.
I'm going to probably look for that on eBay. Globulus is about to snap Falcon's neck, but Falcon stabs his eye out with the time worm stick. I was like, whoa, I don't remember this happening.
It was edited really well because you don't see it happen, but they do a good moment of like eyeball, stick, and then like it cuts away, but you're like, in my mind, I saw it happen.
Yeah, it
Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It Texas Chainsaw Massacres you. Yeah, that's really smart.
There was a lot of really clever editing moves, but also like, I wouldn't say camera moves because it's animated, but there's a lot of real awesome direction in this, like especially all the stuff at the beginning, like during the opening sequence, the way stuff played out, or even when Pythona was attacking the base. They showed like the sniper guy looking through the scope and you see a reflection of her coming or whatever. It was just all really clever stuff that you're like, oh, it's a kid's cartoon.
It's always great when they could manage to have somebody punch the screen that you're watching. Like in the very beginning, one of the Crimson Guard punches a camera, but it hits the screen.
It's so good.
Yeah, they do a lot of stuff with the perspective and a lot of things turning. Because sometimes you're watching cartoons, like I'll go back to stuff for nostalgia purposes in my youth, and I'll watch it and I'm like, oh, this is really lazy. Like this is, my brain made this way better than it is. But I didn't feel like that with this movie at all.
Well, I mean, there are like in both sides, G.I. Joe and Cobra, there's a lot of scenes where it's like 8 people just standing there. And they all like are just action figures, sort of like somewhere focus, even like lower res than the others. It's interesting.
That's so true. The space pod releases the spores. It's too late, but Falcon turns the BET up to 11, and Sergeant Slaughter swings Jinx around so Falcon can grab her ankles in a move that's so weirdly creative, and they escape. Meanwhile, Cobra-La crumbles and implodes. Duke comes out of his coma, unfortunately, and Falcon and Jinx kiss in a situation that none of us wanted. And that's the end of G.I.
There's
Joe
tongue.
the movie. There is tongue.
There is tongue.
They either didn't close the mouths all the way, they animated it.
Yes.
There was like a little bit of pink, and I was like, were they tongue kissing? And I rewound it 3 times just to like, did I see what I think I saw? It was like,
This is my favorite thing. Like, I was listening to the commentary on King of the Hill. What's his name? The main guy, whatever. They were talking about how explicit their instructions needed to be for the animation that was done overseas. Because if they left anything up to the imagination of the animators, they were just going to fill it in with whatever they wanted. It happened on 80s cartoons all the time. There's like, if you go back and you watch the D&D cartoon, I can't tell you how many times one of the characters, Sheila, will like jump up and there's like an upskirt shot like all the time. It's gratuitous. And it's just because they never said, hey, never show her from underneath the skirt.
you didn't say not to. Yeah.
Seemed like an opportunity, so that's crazy. So that's G.I. Joe the movie. Any final thoughts?
I love it. As a kid, it was weird, but I always loved it. And I never realized it actually was supposed to be a movie. Like when I first saw it, it was when they broke it down into episodes that were parceled out. I think it was broken into 5 episodes. So it was just like a special week of just that. But later, I just grew to love it even more, just as I learned about the lore between it and Transformers the movie, and how, the one affected the other, and I don't know. It's just got this really special place in my heart. I love the G.I. Joe cartoon because I think a lot of people that like watched it, like they misremember how crazy and zany it was. I mean, there was time travel and demons, and
They ended up playing football against each other in one episode.
Right.
No murder or
it gets-
criminal trials involved. It was just like, oh, our teams ended up playing together. Well, we'll do it.
Oh, wow. I don't remember that at all. Or demons.
Vi-
There was demons?
Oh, the Viper episode?
Yeah.
The Viper will be here on Tuesday or whatever, and it was the window wiper.
The window wiper.
They thought it was going to be like a cobra, and they like misinterpreted. Just crazy.
There's an episode where they like can't remember exactly what happens, but there's like 3 ghosts that are haunting the Joe characters that are old military people. There's one where they go into an alternate universe where all the Joes were wiped out and Cobra rules, and one of the Joes decides to stay because he's like, you know what? I fell in love with the Baroness here, so I'm gonna stay. That show was the writers. What I loved about it is the writers did not write down to kids. They just wrote zany crap, and they were like, keep up, or whatever. So this movie is like a distillation of all that insanity. I don't know. I just love it.
So this is one of the best toys that they put out recently from the Pyramid of Darkness episode. The Cobras have to escape, and they put on the dumbest costumes. They made the action figures for the costumes. Destro is a workman, Cobra Commander's a lady out shopping, and the Baroness is like a sexy nurse. Not much in costume or whatever, but yeah.
That is amazing. God, I hope they put out it. Have they put out Cold Slither? Have they put out the Dreadnought band yet?
No. I can imagine.
What? There's a Dreadnought band?
There's an episode where the Dreadnoughts play a band. They put subliminal messages in the music to take control of teenagers, and then the G.I. Joes have their band that fights there at the battle of the bands.
Those are the stakes we need for a G.I. Joe movie, where it's like, I'm gonna put something on the moon, and it's all 80s, and we're fake CGI. It'd be great.
Yeah.
That would blow people's minds if they were like, here's the new G.I. Joe movie, and like Chris Hemsworth or somebody is like, we need a band to battle their band. Everyone would be like, what is this?
It would be rad if it was done in modern times, but kind of like how the Brady Bunch movie kept the Brady stuck in time.
Yes.
So like, G.I. Joe, and it's like, okay, man. And like Cobra's like, ridiculous. And
I love the idea of Destro too, wearing an outfit that disguises him except for his giant chrome head.
Well, that's the other thing with Destro too. Like Dr. Mindbender, but like Destro's just got like the deepest V.
I don't even know where it comes from, but there's the pimp version.
Yes, the
leopard skin.
No, it's so I have it. It's it's what's it called? It has like
I know there's a version. I'm sure it was like a later version of the toy or something, but it's like he's everything but the hat. He needs a cane.
Yes.
Oh, it's tricked out. Yeah.
It's great.
JL, any final thoughts for G.I. Joe the movie?
I love it. There's so much great stuff. I think it's a glorious mess, the whole middle section of it. But I do love that, like, the foreshadowing where they have the recruits that end up later on saving the day. And I look at it, and was it Burgess Meredith who was Globulus?
Yes. Yeah.
He was fine. It was a recognizable voice at the time. Like, I don't really know why Don Johnson was involved.
Right.
Because everyone else isn't like a famous voice actor, and maybe it was just.
They basically did the same thing in Transformers the movie with Leonard Nimoy, Orson Welles.
That was badass.
As Nelson.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing better. The best piece of trivia for Transformers the movie is that it's Orson Welles' last film.
Yeah.
He started out with Citizen Kane and ended as a giant planet. It's awesome.
So wow.
Genius. This was a big deal when I was a kid, and it was super fun to like revisit it now and then remember, like, I mean, all the different toys. I mean, of all the things I played with, like, I had Mask figures. I had the RoboCop stuff because I loved RoboCop, but he was even too big for the G.I. Joes. I had the Ghostbuster figures in the car, the real Ghostbusters, but the car was too big for the G.I. Joes. Like, G.I. Joes was really the thing that was like what I stuck with for the longest time, and probably like the last toy where I was like, okay, all my friends are not playing with toys anymore, so I gotta, like, I'll keep playing for probably a couple more years, but I won't tell them that I'm playing with these things, you know.
And they all did secretly too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, well, they moved into comic books. Somehow that was supposed to be more like we didn't still play with toys. But are they still making G.I. Joe comic books? Is this still a thing that's still going?
They've relaunched it over and over again, but they just relaunched Cobra Commander series.
Yeah, so it's weird. So Image got all the G.I. Joe stuff and Transformers. So they're doing they're starting from ground zero, building a universe between G.I. Joe and the Transformers, and they got that thing. But they have like an ongoing, like, continuing from the last companies. Like, Larry Hamm's been writing G.I. Joe since the 80s, and he's still writing it. And they've just kept it going with the same numbering and everything. It's something.
I mean, how many issues could that have?
I mean, I know it's up in the 300 or 400, something like that.
Crazy. That's
one of the coolest things I have is Larry Hamill wrote an issue of G.I. Joe, and many issues, but he was at Rose City Comic Con here in Portland and signed it, and I have it, but it's Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow fighting in front of the Maiden, Oregon.
Oh, whoa.
Sign by downtown. It's great. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Where do you hide all this cool stuff? Oh, it's right there. Okay. Well, if either of you want to be found, where can people find you, Shawn?
Easiest place is plasticrocketpop.com. From there, you can find my podcast that I do. Most of it's at the Cult Film Club stuff. Got a couple podcasts over there. But yeah, that's basically my home for everything now. Social's weird. Social's crumbling. I don't know. I would throw out social things, but it's like I don't even know what to call them anymore. Is it X? Is it Twitter? I don't know.
Yeah. I also have neglected my blogs for a while, and somewhere GoDaddy did some sort of update, and so all of my blogs have disconnected from their databases. So I wouldn't even tell you where to find me because I can't find me right now. But
all right. Well, that's secretive, like most of the Joes. I'll write your backstory. Well, thanks both of you for being here. Huge thanks to Wordburglar. You can find all his music and comics and merch at wordburglar.com. Selections in this episode are from Welcome to Cobra Island. I just discovered he's writing a sequel to that album, so another G.I. Joe rap album. And we're going to go out with one of his songs. It's I Don't Want to Go to Cobra Law. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS.
Somewhere deep within the Himalayas, hidden away is a civilization of bioengineered innovations. I ain't faking. They're a chitinous nation who enjoy dressing up in living crustaceans. They're building installations made from snakeskin with a little bit of caterpillar baked in. I knew a patient who tried escaping. They gave him spores that made his brain vacant.
It's obvious around the Cobra camp, I'm hearing rumors that Globulus looks like a flying tumor. Humanoid upper body with the crab on his face. Serpent sail coiled like a cobra has it encased in a spear that flies around a magical place. Mountain-like fungusoid shoots spores into space. War with that place is suicide, we're not a threat. Heard they have tentacle bombs and
I don't wanna go to Cobra Law. Please don't make me go. You might as well say goodbye when they say hello. Turning into a snake ain't worth the bad pay. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. under the leadership of Globulus. They're making plans that involve de-evolving us.
Bang, helicopter shot down by solid vinaigrette. Telepathic brainwaves, they don't need no internet. Cobra Academy, students by design. Psychic motivators plant new ideas in the mind.
And the enforcer can't talk, but makes other noises. He smells like dead stuff and rather enjoys it. Eyeballs in weird places, skin that's see-through. They mind control worms just to eat you.
I heard a jail cell in Cobra Law is a giant clam. Eats you alive, trapped you are a dying man. Could you imagine those clams in a giant frying pan? One of them could feed a squadron.
I don't wanna go to Cobra Law. Please don't make me go. You might as well say goodbye when they say hello. Turning into a snake ain't worth the bad pay. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way. Was once a man, I wanna stay that way.
Out of uniform, I can speak. I know the law. Word on the street, we cannot defeat Cobra Law. Poisonous spores mature when they are still a seed, and they grow from the earth like a millipede. Heard they use beetles for keys to a door, and buildings grow from seeds in the floor. Need I say more? Organic technology, you'll bleed on the floor from a frontal lobotomy.
Centuries of hypergenetic manipulation leading up to mankind's obliteration. I'm scared they recruit me. My college degree is a bachelor of mollusk technology. They got a snake lady called Pythona. Anyone who gets near her dies in a coma. My friend Larry, who drives a watermark